live. Welcome to the show ahead of the 45th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community. All this while CARICOM observes its 50th anniversary under the theme 50 Years Strong, a solid foundation to build on. I'm DK Rossa, and I'm very happy to be able to start this conversation with long-standing journalist Andy B. Johnson for a look at CARICOM's history. Thank you so much for making the time, Mr. Johnson.
It's a pleasure, VK.
Now, looking at the fact that you have been a member of the fourth estate around at least 5 decades, which is times that we can be saying possibly before CARICOM, what are some of the, lay the table in terms of factors leading up to the formation of CARICOM first?
Well, before that, there was this organization called, was it a regional grouping? It wasn't
the Federation?
CARICOM. No, it was between the Federation and CARICOM. There was a free trade arrangement, a free trade area, the Caribbean Free Trade Area, CARIFTA they called it, and so that led into for a couple of years until July 1973. I want to tell you that I was at the Chaguaramas Convention Center in July 1973 at the first signing of the treaty that gave life to CARICOM. I don't know too many people who have been in our business who was there then except the great Alfred Aguiton, because he used to run a radio program on 610 radio at that time, and he'd done a hookup with a guy named Ron Sanders, who was doing the same kind of thing as he was in Trinidad, in Guyana, and they had a kind of regional hookup to launch CARICOM in July 1973.
Now, from then to now, there are many things that have happened, both specific as well. Some of those moments, some of those milestones from 1973 to 2023.
You know, one of the things is that if you notice, so this is the 50th anniversary of it, but it is the 45th annual conference, because there was a period between 1977 and say 1982. There was no summit because there were differences of one kind or another, big island, small country, as it were, and issues like that having to do with how we want to organize this business about free trade, because CARIFTA was about free trade, but then they felt that there was need for more than that. And as we speak, I also want to pay tribute to a man named the late William Dimas. He was the first Secretary General of CARICOM, a Trinidad and Tobago national. He moved from CARIFTA into CARICOM, and he was there between 1974, 1964, I think, into CARICOM and further down. And then, well, later on in the thing, you had Mr. Edwin Carrington, who was there from 1999 to 2011 or something like that. So those are two Trinidad and Tobago citizens who played pivotal roles in CARICOM at the time. They have been, I wanted to go back to that point about why there weren't any summits or any meetings between 77 and 82 because of disagreements on those things. Like I say, you know, the big island, you know, and the countries versus the small. And there was this bickering about, well, who will be in charge of what and so on. And so that passed before they resumed these annual conferences. And the one that started to where we are now happened in Ocho Rios in 1972, and then they came to Trinidad in 1973, and there were breaks not in holding the conferences, but with arguments about, at one time when other countries in the region were talking about, well, let's get together in the way that this thing proposes. There was a discussion about something called deepening instead of widening. So let's go deeper into the concept and the of regional unit rather than to bring in everybody else. And then that was to the point where the decision was taken. And as fast as a country became independent, you know, in another case, they moved to join the union to the point where it is at the moment today. And then you had the question about what does freedom of movement be? And out of that came the business of what they call the CARICOM skills, a sort of arrangement whereby you can move from one country to the next if you qualified as a citizen from where you're coming from, what your skills were. And I want to, in respects, across the region, media people like us were among the first set of people. There were 5 categories to begin with, and then after a period it was widened. and media people were always in the first bunch of people who were considered to be those who can move from territory to territory. And I'm sure you know some of our colleagues who came from other places and are working and living in Trinidad.
I've been one of those persons as well, working on other territories. But in terms of those issues that you spoke about that caused that the disparity from 50 years as CARICOM to 45 years as the conference, do you think we are, I don't want to say past that, but is it that we're safeguarding so that things like that won't happen again? And I even tie that to the question of deepening versus widening, because sometimes it seems as though there are things to itemize and check off, but they don't always follow a principle, a guiding principle that, or a spirit that will lead you along the path that you're trying to go. And do you think we are there? What are some of those things that are still slight schisms underneath that tie into the days or that 5 year break?
Well, I tell you one thing. In the middle of the period between then and now, you had a situation in Grenada where a prime minister was killed. And that happened on the basis of the fact that there were differences into what kind of political system we should have, what kind of economic system we should have. And I'm talking about, referring to Maurice Bishop, who had been to a summit in Trinidad and Tobago at the time in 1983. And he was making some promises because there were serious demands on him by then, the Prime Minister of Jamaica and of Barbados and others in the region to regularize call elections and regularize his status. And he had made a promise to do that here. And he'd said that he'd already had discussions with two Trinidad and Tobago senior attorneys at the time, Alan Alexander and another one, Frank Solomon, both of them who were deceased now. And he said that they were going to write a new constitution under which Grenada was going to, as it were, fall in line with the political thinking in the region. And that was in July 1983. And by October, he was a dead man, because having made that commitment, he had to go back home and try to sell it. And he wasn't able to do that. But what happened out of that is that there was a schism among the leaders in the country at the time, the four major ones. George Chambers was Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. You had the Prime Minister of Barbados and the Prime Minister of Jamaica, Siaga, and Tom Adams. And they were sort of the ones who arranged for something to happen in Grenada. And that meant that U.S. forces were invited during the period in which Bishop had been under house arrest for two weeks and nobody knew. And when that came out, there was a meeting in Trinidad and Tobago to try and find a solution and a way out of that. But the Barbados Prime Minister and the Jamaican Prime Minister didn't agree with what was agreed to in Trinidad and Tobago. And then the Prime Minister of Dominica at the time, Dame Eugenia Charles, on the morning in which President Ronald Reagan was announcing that U.S. troops had landed in Grenada, she was sitting in the same space, just like this, with the U.S. President on the matter. So the question about whether it's an invasion, it was an invasion or not, I argued that it was not an invasion because it was an invitation. But that created real problems for some time in the leadership of CARICOM, such that on that day in question, I was at my desk in the Express, and I was trying to reach Tom Adams, who was the Prime Minister of Barbados. And he came out of what I was told was a cabinet meeting. He said, "Johnson, I want you to find out one question for me before I answer you." I said, "What it was, sir?" He said, "Why is your Prime Minister not returning my calls?" And that is an indication of an issue which caused real friction before, after a while, they sorted it out and decided to go forward with it. And Forbes Burnham, who was the president of Guyana at the time, at the news conference on the sense of what had happened in Grenada, I asked him at a press conference, well, to what extent you can say that the government in Grenada is legitimate if it came to power this way? And he said, he went back to a story about the King William of Orange. He said that it's never about how you come to power, once you can establish that you are effectively in charge. And I know those things stay with me until now. But so those and other things like that. And then in 89, when you had the summit in Grand Anse, where they decided to put down the framework for what is now the CSME, that was an issue that it took some of the member states at the time some time to get comfortable with what it meant, even though on the top of it, it was about finding the best ways in which we can cooperate economically and create this single market, what they call the CARICOM single market and economy.
And we have about 3 minutes more, but in terms of speaking about things that stay with you, there are two things that when I think of CARICOM, I also think of Federation, but I think of the one from 10 Leaves North. I also think of Professor Emeritus Rex Nettleford saying, if we don't hang together, we'll be hung individually.
Yes.
So in this time, speak to the power of CARICOM as a force for advocacy versus what we are able to do on our own strength as individual jurisdictions within this this archipelago, this Caribbean geographical area.
Right. Well, the one from Denley, that was a statement by the late Dr. Williams when Jamaica broke away from the Federation.
Yes, definitely.
And that led to the dismissal of the Federation and so on. But I think in 2007 there was this thing called the Cricket World Cup in the Caribbean, and if it is one thing about how the collaboration and the coordination of governments worked well with doing, to have, if you'd been around and seen how you could have moved from Guyana to Belize in a day without showing any documents and that kind of thing. And that was an infrastructure that had been worked out as to how it was possible for CARICOM citizens to move, hassle-free from one country to the other. It has not been replicated in the way that was sort of a test run as to how we ought to be moving. But I think over the decades between then and now, and even before that, and it is quite easier to move from one country to the next and get residency and be able to work in some capacities than it would have been even 25 years ago. I think the progress has been slow, but certainly it has been sure, and I think at this point there's much to be commended about the cooperation among countries in the region coming out of that.
What do you hope that people having this conversation in the next 50 years will be talking about?
That I should also say that I think that CARICOM as a unit in the what they call the world body of nations, we have a greater voice at the UN and other international fora such as that when we speak as one. And that in itself is a mightyful play for us, that we have gotten to this point where we, you talk about, when people talk about dealing with people in this part of the world, they talk about, even though you have government-to-government arrangements, but the force of a unity among these countries, I think it's tremendous. When you go to the United Nations General Assembly, or you go to some of these other international meetings, CARICOM speaks with one voice a lot of times, even though when they come back home, they have to sort of dot the I's and cross the T's, where everybody sees their interests being represented and so on. I don't think that we could move away from that at all. There's no looking back in my view.
And even though there's no looking back, I guess the timing has saved me from asking someone who's involved in journalism and broadcasting to foresee or to forecast as opposed to just report what it is. But we want to thank you very much, because there's some things that you can go onto Google and they will give you an answer. But it's very different from the institutional knowledge of someone who has been putting in the work. So we want to thank you very much for being one who has done so and for sharing that insight with us.
If you allow me a half a minute, what I would say is that last year's summit in Suriname, I think one of the commitments they made was to embrace the views and the commitment of young people more. So you have this agenda, the young people and agriculture and the future for that. And I want to see what the report is on that from this summit going forward.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, and we want to thank you again, because the next person that we are going to be speaking with is the president of the Supermarket Association of Trinidad and Tobago, Rajiv Dipti. So we will be returning just after this. Stay with us. We're seeing the sights of delegates and members being escorted in. We would have just seen Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Manning, step forward, as well as Mayor of Port of Spain, Joel Martinez. It's before the 14th of August, so we're still given that title. But we are here now speaking with Mr. Rajiv Dipti, President of the Supermarket Association of Trinidad and Tobago, looking at the local and regional food security, and who better to do it with. So thank you very much for making the time, Mr. Dipti. How are you doing?
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
But serious business though, in terms of asking about the current state of food security, and we can break it into pieces in terms of local as well as regionally.
That's absolutely correct. I mean, at the level of the region, it's been measured in one of the last reports that the regional food import bill stands at about $6 billion collectively. In Trinidad and Tobago, that accounts for something like about $1 billion, and it's something that has grown. And I'll tell you why. One of the key reasons that has happened is really because of core food price inflation around the world. Remember, as the cost of food goes up, so too will the amount of foreign exchange that is being allocated to it, where there is not enough direct import substitution to at least balance that act. So it's really something that we've seen. You would have seen certain trends during COVID continue right now, and that would have been a certain degree of food price inflation, which has cooled down significantly, but which has still not alleviated to the point where people consider it a panacea. Food price inflation is one of the key issues right now. So when we talk about local and domestic food security, we're talking about issues that are really near and dear to the people within the Caribbean and the CARICOM region.
And it's always interesting because sometimes there's an issue, there's a challenge, and we do what we can at that point in time. And then, like you said, not quite a panacea, but things kind of revert back to default. And then we can sometimes have the tendency to say, okay, well, it's good, so we don't need to do anything else to ameliorate or mitigate a future circumstance. Where's your stand on that? Where are we? What are we supposed to be doing, even though we have not necessarily more of a grace period, but the fact that things have reverted a little bit, so things are a little easier to come by?
Well, I want to bear in mind that we're at a CARICOM heads of government meeting, and you know, a couple of key points here. In COVID, I believe that the CARICOM private sector organization is about 2 years old. They would have formed as a focal group coming out of the period during COVID, where food security is an important thing. Another important thing to note is that we are trying to work towards the mandate set by CARICOM, that is the 25% reduction in the food import bill around the region by 2025. It's already 2023. I believe we made that commitment last year, and that's a significant reduction. 25% of $6 billion, you're trying to shave about $1.5 billion thereabouts. And you have to look at the key customers within the region. When you look at Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, and some of the other islands that tend to make that up, including the Bahamas. But at the level of Trinidad and Tobago, and certainly, I mean, we're here right now, when we think about it, there's not enough direct food import substitution as well as alternative production happening to replace the consumption of what we're importing. Typically, why we continue to import it, because it's a lot more accessible volumes at lower prices when local production just isn't meeting the scale of manufacturing or getting the inputs of production in the right amounts that they need to really scale up. So it's a lot of the same issues, DK, but it's what we continue to work with.
But how do we bring agripreneurs, be it persons involved in agriculture, fisher folk, to the table to have conversations to say, okay, well, this is what the market needs. How does that fall in line? How does that align with what it is you're doing? What can be done a little differently in terms of infrastructure to bolster that supply? And this is even before we start to talk about changing tastes, which hopefully we'll get to in a little bit, but bringing persons involved in producing those primary inputs, how do you bring them to the table a little more?
So, you know, it's not just a question of really how it is we present that. It's just a question of how you get people to buy into the narrative as well, because a lot of people have gone back into patterns of consumption that we would have seen in the pre-COVID period. And what we tend to see is that as long as their comfort zone is not eroded significantly, they tend to stay within the patterns of consumption. Also, typically what I tend to recognize is that people generally don't like you to tell them what they should and should not be eating. So you want them to make these decisions of consumption consciously, but that's a serious dilemma. So you need to agitate them towards the preferences that would, one, redound to actually less on the food import bill and actually healthier consumption patterns, because there's the other aspect of it, like the non-communicable diseases, the health-related discussions that center around, because obviously we have a high level of that in Trinidad and Tobago as well. When you think about what could be done in terms of local agriculture, you have to think about regional agriculture, because we've had the discussion locally. I think that there is opportunity within Trinidad and Tobago for agriculture. I think it's more first world. I like to use the example of Berry Cove in Tobago. It's capital intensive, and they're using a lot of sustainable farming models that allow them to grow families of berries that are not really on a mass production level. So they can now earn foreign exchange and also work towards substituting what we import in terms of those families of berries. Now it's capital intensive, it's costing money. So maybe we need to create strategic frameworks for investment. But we could do that around the region in a strategic way, where we lean on the other islands, including our partners in Guyana and Barbados and Suriname. I think it's an excellent way for us to talk about it. I think we spoke about it last year at the investment forum.
Is it a matter of making things cool? Because you said you can't tell people what to eat. So like, I was very happy because I saw, I think it was St. Vincent and the Grenadines, there was a big push from a retail chain dealing with fast food that they were using breadfruit as an alternative to potato fries. So there was that option.
I think absolutely, DK, that you're onto something there. What we see in the world of consumer marketing is that they respond to trends. They respond to influences. They respond, it's that kind of TikTok society that we're living in. And we have to acknowledge that this is part and parcel of the landscape of change. When you want to make transformational change, that is, you have to really be able to lean into the trends. And it starts with the younger generations because they pick up the buy-in first. And they tend to lead the older generations as well by, Mom, Dad, let's try this, let's try something new. And that's important. And as long as you can get that message directly to the younger generations, you see a lot of positive reinforcement, and then organic, it becomes a viral marketing trend all on its own.
I like the fact that you talk about messages. In the minute that we have, what are some of the messages that you hope you'll be hearing today?
I would love to hear more about what's being done intra-regionally within CARICOM. We just concluded the Caribbean Food and Beverage Expo. We collaborated with the CARICOM private sector organization on that initiative. And I think that we saw quite a lot of good messaging coming out of that. I think there's a lot of question marks when you look at the transport paradigm within CARICOM, that is the maritime, air, and we have to acknowledge there's a lot of informal trading happening within CARICOM and within the borders. A lot of fruits, vegetables, provisions move between the islands. We need to enable more of that. We need to enable maritime components. We need to enable the movement of labor, of goods, of services. I think it's
by 20, 50 by 25.
This is Kyron Pollard. When you play, do it the legal way. Don't bet on illegal gaming.
Win up to $1,000 on the spot with NLCB's Cashpot Instant Win. For only $5 more on your regular cashpot bet, you get 5 instant win numbers. If any of your instant win numbers match your cashpot numbers in the corresponding panel, you can win up to $1,000 instantly. Ready for instant winnings? Then play Cashpot Instant Win today. Players must be 18 years and over. Please play responsibly.
Welcome to this afternoon's Playway Pick 2 and Pick 4 draw, supervised by independent auditors KPMG and presided over by the National Lotteries Control Board. Good luck, everyone.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the NLCB's 4 o'clock Playway Pick 2 and Pick 4 draw for Monday, 3rd July 2023. First we draw this afternoon's 4 o'clock Playway number. And the winning number is number 10. Lucky mark is monkey number 10. Omega Mix machine now has a mega bonus ball in each chamber where you can win more mega for your money. Win $36 when the mega bonus ball calls, $80 with the mega ball, $100 with the mega ultra, and $125 with the mega extreme. And now for a mega selection. And we have a mega bonus ball. Players Playway number 10, Monkey, has called along with a mega bonus ball. Congratulations to Omega winners. You've won the base payout and your additional mega winnings. Remember, you can always win more with the mega bonus ball in every draw. Next, we draw this afternoon's 4 o'clock Pick 2 numbers. The first Pick 2 number is the number 11. Once again, that's 11. And the second Pick 2 number is 7. Once again, that's 7. Today's 4 o'clock Pick 2 numbers 11 and 7 in that order. Now for Pick 2 Mega to the Max promotion. Our machine is loaded with the Mega Ball and 2 white balls. If a white ball calls, there will be no extra payout. However, when the Pick 2 Mega Ball calls, players who wagered on the Mega Ball could win the base prize of $2,000 plus an increased Mega prize of $6,000 for every $10 wagered if they match 2 numbers in the correct order. Players Pick 2 numbers 11 and 7 have called in that order with a white ball. Keep on playing the Pick 2 Mega Ball for a chance to win bigger prizes. Now for this afternoon's 4 o'clock Pick 4 numbers. The first Pick 4 number is 0. The second, the number 5. Third is 2. And the fourth is the number 9. I will repeat this afternoon's 4 o'clock winning Pick 4 numbers 0, 5, 2, and 9 in that order. Congratulations to all our winners. Players in some Cashpot news. Last week, 34 lucky players won Cashpot jackpots. Congratulations. Remember, today at our 7 p.m. draw, you can win 4, 3, or 2 times the prize amount for every 4 or 3 numbers matched with our Cashpot multiplier show call promotion. Play to hit the Cashpot jackpot. And scratch, match, and win with our suite of scratch games, Luxury Ride, Big Ride, Set for Life, and Payday. Play 4, win more with up to 60 chances to win. Get your scratch tickets today. And players with Win for Life, you can play once for a chance to win twice with the added Win and Drive promotion. Your Win for Life bet automatically gives you a chance to win a Suzuki Vitara for no extra cost. The Win and Drive draw takes place immediately after the Win for Life draw tomorrow at 7. Get your Win for Life tickets to Win and Drive today. Thanks for joining us. This is again at 7 p.m. for another Player Pick 2 Pick 4 and Cashpot draw.
TTT News, online and fully interactive. Follow us on social media at TTT Live Online.
Raise your voices high, sing up your Caribbean pride, sing it loud and slow, till the heart beats
And looking at quantifying and then going from quantifying to managing though, I want to step back a little bit, and when you hear economics of CARICOM, what is the first thing that comes to mind?
Potential. The first thing comes to mind, I guess I'm a perennial optimist. So I think while there will always be challenges, the G8 has challenges, the European bloc has challenges, South American bloc, BRICS has challenges. What I see is potential. We've come a long way in 50 years, but I think what we've learned along the way should be put to more practical use moving forward to the next 20 or 30 years. And dealing with some of the fundamental issues in the region, for example, intra-regional travel. I attended a tourism summit right here at the Hyatt about 4 or 5 years ago. And the data was that if we get intra-regional travel right, tourism will be supported fully by just people traveling from island to island. But the cost in some instances of going to Barbados or Jamaica is more exorbitant than going to Miami or New York. So people choose that because it's cheaper and it's less hassle. If we get something as simple as that right, think of the potential benefit for the region.
And it's interesting you use the word potential, because I know some people, they say that the word potential means that you're not doing anything right now. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I really appreciate that point, because many times it used to feel as though the waters united us in the Caribbean or in the CARICOM space, but now it feels as though it divides us a little bit.
Remember the old saying, 1 from 10 is north, not 9. So we've had our issues with insularity, because to be fair, we were all fledgling independent nations. So we had to sort out ourselves in many respects first before we could even think of integration at the level that we know integration potential has. But now most of us, we are 61, 62 years old. All the other countries have had decades to develop themselves and their own identities. So I think now is the time where we can put aside some of the insularities that may have come up when we were forging our own identities as independent countries, as republics in some instances like Trinidad and Tobago, and now look toward the understanding that as a region, we are much more powerful, even while maintaining our uniqueness.
And that begs the question, how much does politics or political policy influence or affect the economics? Because I remember one person saying anecdotally, well, yes, the European Union came to the Eastern Caribbean and they looked at how the EC dollar was, they looked at that model before they went back, and that was one of the things that influenced them. I also have had a lecturer say that one of the problems if we're going to be doing something like that in terms of like having a regional currency is whose face is going to be on the bill.
We had EC at one point, but where did that get us?
But how does the politics influence the economics?
Well, very much so. Think about our own situation in Trinidad and Tobago, where if we have a change in administration, policy direction changes. There's very little or no continuity. So think of other islands and other jurisdictions in the region and different leaders who may have had close relationships with somebody who went out of power and not have as close a relationship with someone who comes into power, and a policy direction of a new government changes, even in terms of how they interact with CARICOM and the mandates of CARICOM decided upon at summits like these. So I think the regional politics has been deeply affected by the jurisdictional politics. The late Patrick Manning had a great relationship with, I think, P.J. Patterson. So you would have seen a different kind of interaction. Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaican airlines merged in some respects. So it still comes back to understanding that we have to decide on some ways, some paths as a region, and move past the issues that interrupt continuity when governments change depending on the political landscape in any of the jurisdictions.
And looking at that juxtaposition of specific regional timelines for politics, changes of administration, potential changes of administration, with regard to possibly the longer view of CARICOM timelines, are there any low-hanging fruits, things that we can try to deal with incrementally that are achievable in a way that gets us a little closer to where we want to be?
I think we have a really good example in education. We have University of the West Indies, Trinidad, Tobago, Barbados, Jamaica, Mona campus, Cape in Barbados, St. Augustine, Trinidad and Tobago. We have CXC and Cape, where we've made significant strides in standardizing the education assessment process throughout the region and the curricula throughout the region. So the region in many respects moves forward academically and intellectually almost at the same pace because we've standardized that. Dare I say cricket? At this stage, I don't know if I should say cricket, but I mean on a wider scale sport. We have been pretty good at some level in Trinidad and Tobago in producing great cricketers, great footballers. Jamaica has been excellent in producing athletes that have conquered the world. I think we could do more in terms of sport and exchanges of training programs, exchanges in talent and technical support. You know, we have a lot of stadiums in Trinidad and Tobago that can be used as training grounds for all Caribbean athletes. So I think that's a low-hanging fruit that we can explore. Food, culinary development, culture. I mean, the Caribbean is, to me, the epicenter of culture globally. I mean, I might be a little biased, but, you know. But think of Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, Barbados, Grenada, all have unique cultural focal points that we can export to the world. Jamaica has broken the mold so far as the most successful country to export their culture to North America and Europe. But we did so in the 60s and 50s with Kitchener and Sparrow, and Calypso and Harry Belafonte and the Andrew sisters were singing Calypso. But we haven't capitalized on that and been able to turn it over as sustainable income. So I think that there are several things that we do well that we take for granted that we can maximize and capitalize on. They are low-hanging fruit.
And I take that point as we wrap, and I thank you for your presence. But it's interesting sometimes when you peel back the layers, if you know how to, you realize, wait, no. There's been some influence from the Caribbean. Even like someone talking about modern dance with Martha Graham touring the region and say, okay, well, you wanted to get away from those stiff, hard dynamics of ballet. Went to Haiti, you learn how to ripple your spine, you envelope, you learn this step and you learn this. And now, because the footprint is there, it seems as though sometimes we want to go to learn how to be ourselves.
Yeah, so, I think it's important. That's why I like some of the comments globally from Barbadian Prime Minister Mia Mottley, of how she's reframing the narrative about the Caribbean. We're not islands, we're connected by sea. And don't look at us in the way that the narrative has been spread for the last 40, 50 years from our colonizers and from North America. Let us tell our own stories. Let us paint our own narrative around the world and frame our outlook and our position in the world in a different way. And I want to
thank you for helping contribute to that narrative, Independent Senator. Dr. Paul Richards, I've been told not to leave the doctor out, but congratulations.
It's an academic accreditation.
But the insight is appreciated nonetheless, so we thank you very much for it. And we are continuing. We've been hearing the call for individuals to take their seats, but we have one more conversation, and we're looking forward to it with none other than the Minister of Trade and Industry, so we'll get to that momentarily. tour of CARICOM. It is so interesting that we are so much more similar than we are disparate, and we are going to be talking about trade and industry with none other than the Minister of Trade and Industry, Senator Paula Gopi-Skoon. Minister, thank you so much for your presence.
Very welcome.
Trade and industry within CARICOM, where are we at this point in time?
We've done extremely well. We really have to congratulate ourselves. 50 years, we're in a good place, but there's a lot more that we can do. So, CARICOM as a whole, the figure is somewhere around $30 billion US in terms of trade in goods. Trinidad and Tobago has the largest chunk of that. But we look at things regionally. So at this time, we are looking forward, but I think we're on solid footing. And in terms of the planning to where next, what areas, what in, do we trade in services more than we're trading at this goods? There are those countries that would have a distinct advantage in trading in services, whereas like Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica, they're healthy manufacturing sectors. So trade in goods would probably be what we would be most proficient at. We're on strong footing, and 50 years later, I'm looking forward to another 50 years.
What you're saying,
building on that.
What you're saying is interesting to me because, yes, different jurisdictions have different competencies, strengths in certain ways. So sometimes you almost kind of want to wonder, do we try to build out where we don't necessarily have that strength, or do we try to leverage through our brothers and sisters within CARICOM?
The thing is, clarity is so very important. Also key is what natural resources do you have? And that's why it's so important that we understand how we can work with each other. And I can tell you that there was countries with very large land spaces like Guyana, which really lends itself to food production. And that's why they're really pioneering us all along with the agri-food systems agenda. And it's because of their land spaces. And Trinidad has had since before independence, distinct industrialization, and that has propelled us forward, both in terms of energy and non-energy goods as well. And there are incentives and policies that we took along the way that propelled us and set us on, for where we are today. Jamaica is in a similar position, but not quite as advanced as we are in terms of manufacturing. But on the other hand, Jamaica also has tremendous land spaces as well. And then, of course, you can't forget countries like Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and that have been producing great food, great vegetables and fruit crops and other things as well that I won't talk about on set. But so that I think we all have distinct advantages, but the collaboration and an understanding of the value chain across the region really would set us on a more secure path, because there are things we have to think about. Building our economies is one of them. Another one that is most important is securing our food. So that's also important, and that sets us up on a path to production of food and, of course, the processing of food items as well, looking eventually at import substitution and so on.
I like the fact that you talk about doing an audit to see where your areas of strength, areas of competence, areas of capacity, where those lie. But at the same time, sometimes we also need to look at regulations that are in place, policies that are in place, because if they're not current, they may actually hinder. What kind of emphasis, strength, how do you look at the legislative aspect as it pertains to trade and industry?
Now I'm talking about the region. Mm-hmm. So there has 5 organs, and the organ that looks after trade is COTED, the Council for Trade and Economic. And we sit twice annually, and intersessionally we would sit as well if there are matters that need to be dealt with and hammered out. So that's where the policy setting comes, and that's where the CT, for instance, the Common External Tariff, which is intrinsic to trading among within the region and extra-regionally as well, that all of those matters are on the agenda at the level of the COTED, the Trade and Economic development agency. So that's where the policy setting takes place. The legislation, as you brought that up, is really for sovereign states. But in many areas, we're trying to ensure that there's model legislation or legislation that can be synchronized with the rest of the region, and so that it becomes that much easier for the actual execution of the legislation and implementation thereafter.
But Minister, this is a time of celebration, yes, but also it's always nice to mix in a little business with that pleasure. So what are some of the things that you're hoping to hear from the event this evening as it pertains to the business of trade and industry going up to Wednesday?
But generally, we're looking forward to the gains we've made. 50 years, what does it mean to the people of Trinidad and Tobago and to the people of the region? How do you feel? How do our business people feel? And those are the kinds of questions that are in my head right now. And I know that the business people of Trinidad and Tobago have definitely benefited. When we look at the level of CARICOM trade, CARICOM is our second largest trading partner after the United States. At that level of trade within the region is only on account of the CET arrangements and the trade policies and the ability to trade intra-regionally. And so asking ourselves 50 years later as businessmen, as the business community, they are quite pleased. And you would notice that the TTMA, for instance, is still doing, and there's so much room because of where our trade complementarity lies within the region. There's so much room for further trade development and further exports, so that you would find that we're still we're coming back to the region and ensuring that we could supply the goods rather than the rest of the world. But it is, we always look for that evenness and so on, and that's what we have to work on. But for our people, where are they today? I think everyone knows that we are stronger together, and that we are part of this group of countries. When you look at the rest of the world, the developing world, perhaps CARICOM is the one that has survived for the longest period. We have a lot to be proud of. So you have to look beyond just business and trade. For our people, this is special.
And with that, yes, there have been areas that CARICOM or Trinidad and Tobago has penetrated in terms of market. We have a lot of market share. Is there anybody that you're hoping specifically to hold a little caucus with during the celebration or during the event?
During the celebration, of course, I've already chatted with my colleague, Minister of Trade and Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade from Jamaica. And of course, I intend to chat with all of my colleagues, but there are other meetings as well that I would participate in with the rest of my team and supporting the Honorable Prime Minister as well. Extra-regional countries this morning, we did South Korea, the United States we would do as well. There are a number of meetings throughout this celebratory period that we would be looking at the agenda once again, the development agenda for the entire region. So it's not just about Trinidad and Tobago, but I want to stress regional development.
I like the way you say that, because we've had another person on this platform here speak about, okay, some people think, okay, well, it's just paying out versus it's an investment.
Yes.
And if we invest in each other, we will see those returns. Sometimes it happens a little faster, sometimes it happens a little slower, but until all have crossed, none have crossed. And according to Pat Bishop, some we have to carry.
We have so much to learn from each other. For instance, tourism. There's so many other countries in the region that are doing extremely well regionally, or different types of tourism as well. You're talking about St. Lucia, Grenada, and Barbados, Jamaica. And there's a lot of exchanges and much more that we can do together in terms of those kinds of services and that tourism agenda as well. And in other areas of economic development, we're all looking at strengthening the region economically, and therefore we got to do it together. That's the only way forward.
I think we can all agree that a stronger CARICOM means a stronger Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, and it means, and I bring it always back to the individual. And you not only belong to Trinidad and Tobago, but you belong to the Caribbean, and it's a very special place compared to the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. Very unique in its character and its circumstances and so on.
And you say that and you make me want to intone Black Stallion with his thesis
That's
on,
right.
on the matter.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So it's a very special time for us all.
And we don't want to hold you back from the time too much in terms of the event is about to start. So we want to thank you very much, Minister. Senator Paula Gopi-Schoon, the Minister of Trade and Industry, as we have been here at the show before the show. So we'll just see what other sites we have, and then we will wrap up.
Thank you. Thank you, Dirk. I wasn't sure where you were going.
Raise your voice and high, sing up your Caribbean pride. Sing it loud and strong, to the heartbeat roll. Raise your voice and high, sing up your Caribbean pride. Sing it loud and strong, to the heartbeat roll. Raise your voice and high, sing up your Caribbean pride. Sing it loud and strong, to the heartbeat roll. Raise your voice and high, sing up your Caribbean pride. Sing it loud and strong, to the heartbeat roll. Raise your voice and high, sing up your Caribbean pride. Sing it loud and strong, to the heartbeat roll. Raise your voice and high, sing up your Caribbean pride. Sing it loud and strong, to the heartbeat roll. Raise your voice and high, sing up your Caribbean pride. Sing it loud and strong, to the heartbeat roll. Raise your voice and high, sing up your Caribbean pride. Sing it loud and strong, to the heartbeat roll. Raise your voice and high, sing up your Caribbean pride. Sing it loud and strong, to the heartbeat roll. Raise your voice and high, sing up your Caribbean pride. Sing it loud and strong, to the heartbeat roll. Raise your voice and high, sing up your Caribbean pride. Sing it loud and strong, to the
And we continue seeing sights and sounds that show us how rich we are as a people within the CARICOM region, and seeing that the host of looking at the fact that the national anthem of Dominica is going to be playing, because we were actually in the good graces of Dominica, which was supposed to be hosting this 45th meeting instead of Trinidad and Tobago. Possibly I should have started with the First People's greeting of Mabrika. But at the same time, we've spoken with Andy B. Johnson, giving us an overview of the history, some of the things that we can look forward to, some of the factors that would have led to that disparity between 45 years of Choga meetings versus 50 years of CARICOM. We spoke with Rajiv Dipti, the Supermarket Association of Trinidad and Tobago and the chair of the Caribbean Supermarket Association, giving us an idea of where we are with regard to food security, some of the things that we need to be looking at. Senator Paul Richards, or Dr. Paul Richards, spoke about the economics of CARICOM, some of the things that played, some of the factors that influence the economics of CARICOM, some of the short-term goals that we should be able to cash in on to make us move forward as this CARICOM region. And last but not least, we spoke with Senator Paula Gopi-Skoon, Minister of Trade and Industry, who is celebrating the fact that we have gone 50 years. We have learned lessons. We are going to go forward to another 50. And we are seeing that one of the things that we have, that we can trade in, that we can invest in, that we can use as industry is that of culture, as you are seeing right now, as we still have persons moving into the area where the meeting was be, and we just see one MP as he is going in. But letting you know, though, we will be having speeches by certain individuals. One of them is the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Minister Rowley. We will also be having a cultural performance by Mangal Pasesar and Pantar. Definitely, you want to keep on listening, you want to keep on tuning in, because the Honorable Philip Edward Davis, Prime Minister of the Bahamas, as well as His Excellency Antonio Guterres, United Nations Secretary General, they are going to be at the lectern as well. And last but not least, we will have the Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, Prime Minister of Dominica. So we want to thank you so much for tuning in, and we continue encouraging you to tune in to TTT as the show continues. We now carry you inside the event.
Raise your voices high, sing up your Arabian pride.
CARICOM song. Thereafter, we shall pause for reflection from heads of the various religious organizations, and then move into the formal remarks for the opening ceremony. I thank you in advance for your cooperation, and we look forward to an enjoyable afternoon into evening time here in Port of Spain, Trinidad.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 45th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM. We're happy you can join us on this momentous occasion as we also celebrate the 50th anniversary of CARICOM. Welcome to our guests at the Hyatt Regency Trinidad. Welcome to all joining us online. And now we welcome the heads of government of the Caribbean community, accompanied by members of the Girl Guides and the Boy Scouts Associations of Trinidad and Tobago. Please welcome the Secretary General for the Caribbean community, Dr. Carla Barnett. Antigua and Barbuda, the Honorable Gaston Brown, Prime Minister. The Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the Honorable Philip Edward Davis, Prime Minister. The Republic of Barbados, the Honorable Mia Amor Motley, Prime Minister. Grenada, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, Prime Minister. The Cooperative Republic of Guyana, His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali, President. The Republic of Haiti, His Excellency Dr. Ariel Henry, Prime Minister. Jamaica, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister. Montserrat, Dr. the Honorable Samuel Joseph, Acting Premier. The Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honorable Dr. Terence Michael Drew, Prime Minister. St. Lucia, the Honorable Philip J. Pierre, Prime Minister. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. the Honorable Ralph E. Gonsalves, Prime Minister. The Republic of Suriname, His Excellency Chandraka Prasad Santokhi, President. Anguilla, the Honorable Dr. Ellis L. Webster, Premier. Bermuda, the Honorable E. David Burt, Premier. British Virgin Islands, Dr. the Honorable Natalio de Wheatley, Premier. Cayman Islands, the Honorable G. Wayne Panton, Premier. The Turks and Caicos Islands, the Honorable Owen Saunders, Deputy Premier. The Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, Prime Minister. The Chairman of the Conference of the Caribbean Community, the Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to the heads of government of the Caribbean community. Please stand. And now, please welcome the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Her Excellency Christine Kangaloo, ORTT, and His Excellency Kerwin Garcia, SC. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Her Excellency Christine Kangaloo, ORTT, and His Excellency Kerwin Garcia, SC. And now, the national anthems of the Commonwealth of Dominica, performed by Michelle Henderson, and the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, performed by Hermina Charles.
Isle of beauty, Isle of splendor, Isle jewels so sweet and fair. All must surely gaze in wonder at lights so rich and rare. Rivers, valleys, hills, and mountains, all these hills we do extol. Helping land so like a fountain, giving cheer that warms the soul. Forged from the love of liberty in the files of hope and prayer, with boundless faith in our destiny, we solemnly declare. Side by side we stand, islands of the blue Caribbean Sea, this our native land. We pledge our lives to thee. Every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation. Every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation.
Please remain standing. We invite their excellencies to be seated. We invite the heads of government of the Caribbean community to make their way off stage and retire to their seats. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we now invite you to be seated.
And here to perform the CARICOM song is Dominica's renowned jazz and fusion singer, accompanied by the National Steel Symphony Orchestra of Trinidad and Tobago. Please welcome Michelle Henderson.
From many distant lands, our forefathers came, some seeking adventure, some bound in chains. Through battles waged and fought, through victory and pain, by test of their courage, our freedom was gained. In homage to those gone before us, the heroes of lands in the sun, we vow to join hands and to focus on building one Caribbean. Raise your voices high and sing of your Caribbean pride. Sing it loud and strong, feel our hearts beat as one. Celebrate in song as we rise to heights where we belong. Sound the victory drum for CARICOM. The great and diverse be our ethnicity. The bonds that unite us are stronger than we. We die, we pray, we love, we dance and we play, we relate to each other the Western John way. Today as a people united, determined and steadfast we stand. We look to a brand new horizon, the future now firmly in our hands. Raise your voices high and sing of your Caribbean pride. Sing it loud and strong, feel our hearts beat as one. Celebrate in song as we rise to heights where we belong. Sound the victory drum, oh CARICOM. Hele, hele, wow, oh, oh, you sing CARICOM. Lebe, lebe, wow, knock your drum CARICOM. Tambour, you tambour, wow, oh, oh, you sing CARICOM. Raise your voices high and sing of your Caribbean pride. Sing it loud and strong, feel our hearts beat as one. Celebrate in song as we rise to heights where we belong. Sound the victory drum, oh CARICOM. Hele, hele, wow, oh, for you sing CARICOM. Lebe, lebe, wow, hele, hele, tambour, you tambour, wow, oh, rock you drum CARICOM. Lebe, lebe, wow.
All thanks to Michelle Henderson from the Commonwealth of Dominica and the National Steel Symphony Orchestra from the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, at this time, we pause our program to invite faith leaders to offer their blessings on this assembly. We begin with His Grace Archbishop Charles Jason Gordon, RC Archbishop of Port of Spain.
There's a wonderful story of creation. That when Papa God created the lands, the seas, and formed the boundaries of everything, he had just a little bit of matter left in his hand. And he asked what to do with this. And he said, I know. And he took it and scattered it like stones skipping along a pond, forming an archipelago that we now call the Caribbean. Papa God, we thank you for your creation of us, your people, feisty and beautiful, vibrant and powerful, individually small and vulnerable, but together a mighty force to be reckoned with. Vulnerable to creation and to climate change, vulnerable to the ideas of big nations, vulnerable to the power plays of the world, and to debt. But together, we pray, O God, that as our heads of nations meet in these days, that we may chart a way not just to see the possibility of our region for today or for tomorrow, for our children's children and children, to see a way to be Caribbean, where in the world we may stand tall. And in the world, we may leave a legacy for generations to come of what nations can do when their leaders unite with vision and purpose. And we ask, O God, your blessings upon this meeting, that vision and purpose may flow for all of our people. We make our prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Your Grace. We continue with the head of the Anglican Diocese, the Right Reverend Bishop Claude Berkeley.
Oh, how good and pleasant it is when brethren live together in unity. It is like fine oil upon the head that runs down the beard, upon the beard of Aaron, and runs down upon the collar of his robe. It is like the dew of Hermon that falls upon the hills of Zion, for there the Lord has ordained the blessing, life forevermore. Glory to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and shall be forever. Amen. Sovereign Lord and Father, you have given your Holy Spirit to your people to lead them into all truth. Bless with the Spirit's grace and presence the members of the 45th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of the CARICOM community, celebrating CARICOM's 50th year of establishment. Keep them steadfast in their commitment to serve the Caribbean people and united in a love that engenders hope in treating with the many challenges which beset us as a people. Grant them, O God, the wisdom to lead us through the enduring issues of emancipation, climate change, natural disasters, human trafficking, drug abuse, post-colonial dystrophy, economic stagnation, migration, and a host of challenges to our people in these days. Enable your chosen leaders, dear Father, to recognize and utilize the things we have in common and plan accordingly to bolster our capacity as a group of small island states. Deepen their understanding of one another's needs and their respect for each other as they deliberate. Moreover, unite them in the common cause of justice, truth, and freedom that will enhance the dignity of Caribbean people and bring you honor and glory. Bless this 45th meeting, O God, and grant that it may be a celebration of 50 years of distinguished service, so that its outcomes will move us further along pathways of progress and peace. And we pray for these mercies through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Your Lordship. Representing the Hindu community, His Holiness Dharmacharya Pundit Dr. Ramprasad Parasrat.
Greetings, Jai Sitaram, Namaskar. We turn to God this evening as we gather here to do the people's business, and remember that God is our mother and father, our brother, our friends, our prosperity, our wisdom. Indeed, God is our everything. So, as we move to build safe, secure, and sustainable communities together, we pray to God to continue to shower His grace upon us, and we pray for His mercy and His guidance. Please, Rajabhya paripalayantam nama go brahmanebhya shubhamastu lokano bhavantu tvameva mata cha pita tvameva bandhu cha sakha tvameva vindya dravinam tvameva sarvam mama deva. Om shanti 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 om. Bless us all. Thank you very much.
The Orisha community, Baba Neil Ryan Rawlins.
Pleasant good evening. I call on the omnipotent Olodumare, the everlasting giver of life, to grant us life existence. I call on Papa Esho Elegwa, the divine messenger of transformation, the divine secretary to Olodumare, the one who opens and closes the doorway to and the pathway to mankind, to intercede in this celebration of the life of the 50th anniversary of the region of CARICOM, this historical signing of the Treaty of Chagaramas on this day in 1973 to establish the Caribbean Community and Common Market, CARICOM. I call on our positive ancestors, on all our ancients, those who came before us through the Middle Passage on slave ship against their will, that forcibly charted the way for us to be here. Today, to this sacred island, Trinidad, La Trinity, this country, Trinidad and Tobago. It's to this region, the Caribbean, this diaspora, these 15 members and its associate member state, I pay homage and respect to the pioneers of the Caribbean community. I ask the everlasting giver of existence to continue to give us life. Help us that we may overcome all fears, all anxiety, all hardships, all ills, and any form of negativity that may cause harm. Grant us that peace of living our lives fulfilled, so we experience the goodness and greatness that the omnipresent Olodumare has to offer us, such as hope, faith, love, peace, understanding, wisdom, knowledge, protection, good governance, fresh courage, and continued and continued blessing. I call on all the Orishas to come and guide and to assist us as we continue to fight away the darkness that is attempting to dominate the earth and mankind. I pray for a positive revolution, a release, a renewal, a rekindling of life, of love, of hope, of faith, of brotherhood, mutual respect, spiritual consciousness and understanding. To all the peoples of this region, this Caribbean community, I call on the mystery of the spirit of I and Papa Ogun and the waters that surround us in abundance to continue to support and protect this region. In closing, I pray for continuous collaboration, for sustained, positive, systematic development for our region, and building of strong community relations with human dignity, fundamental freedoms, and human rights, without distinction as to race, sex, language, and religion. A solid foundation to build on. I ask the positive energies of the universe to continue to bless and keep our region protected and peaceful. I pray for unity, togetherness. Ashe, ashe, ashe.
Thank you, Baba Neil Ryan Rawlins. We continue in prayer with Bishop Andrew John of the Pentecostal Assemblies of the West Indies.
The Lord is the strength of my life. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? When the wicked, even mine enemies and my foes, came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell. Today, precious God, we pray that you would be this defense to our region, the Caribbean. We're asking as we gather at this 50th celebration of CARICOM that you would grant your blessings to our political leaders, delegates. Give them discernment, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Give them grace, increase their faith, and prepare them to pursue your excellence at this conference. Bring them to you and help them to know and fulfill their duties. Almighty God, help our leaders excel in strength and courage. Surround them with influences that impart and impact sound and godly counsel, for without your counsel, their path will grow crooked. Lord, bless our leaders and have their attention centered on the urgent needs of our CARICOM region and provide the capabilities to make us prosper. Heavenly Father, I'm reminded of you in your words given to the wise man, King Solomon, in 2 Chronicles chapter 7 and verse 14. If my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and forgive their sins and heal their land. Precious Jesus, enable our leaders in their responsibilities to become willing and obedient to your will. Let at this 50th CARICOM anniversary and 45th meeting of the Conference of CARICOM Heads of Government, that there be in the midst of our diversities of talents, differences of administration, and diversities of operations, that there be the same spirit for us to achieve the success of CARICOM. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Bishop John. Finally, representing the Muslim community, President General of the Anjuman Sunnat al-Jamaat Association, Imam Haji Ahmad Hussain.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udzu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina may yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa may yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Ameen. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the beneficent, the merciful, owner of the day of judgment. Thee do we serve, and thee do we beseech for help. O Allah, bless all the leaders of the Caribbean states, those who are members and those who are associate members. We ask of you, O Allah, to guide them in their deliberations, that they will make decisions that will be of benefit to their respective countries and citizens. We ask you, O Lord, to make the task easy for them. And when the summit is over, everyone will be satisfied to return to their country and continue to guide their citizens once more. قل اللهم مالك الملك تؤتي الملك من تشاء وتنزع الملك ممن تشاء وتعز من تشاء وتذل من تشاء بيدك الخير إنك على كل شيء قدير سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you to Haji Ahmad Hussain. Our thanks to all heads of religion for leading us in prayer. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. As we prepare for the formal remarks, we shall establish the salutations and protocol on which this, the opening ceremony of the 45th regular meeting of the Conference Heads of Government of CARICOM shall be established. Your Excellency, Christine Kangaloo, ORTT, President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and Your Excellency Kerwin Garcia, SC. The Chairman of the 45th meeting in Conference of Heads of Government, the Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica. The host country Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and other heads of government of the Caribbean community. The Secretary General of CARICOM, Dr. Carla Barnett. The Chief Justice of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Mr. Justice Ivor Archie. The President of the Senate of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Senator the Honorable Nigel de Freitas. The Speaker of the House of Representatives of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Bridget Anisette George.
Honorable Ministers of Cabinet, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Korea, Your Excellency Han Duck-soo, other heads of international and regional institutions, members of the diplomatic corps, heads of delegations, delegates, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome to deliver remarks the Secretary General of CARICOM, Dr. Carla Barnett.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Protocol having been established, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to this 45th meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM, where we are celebrating our 50th anniversary. On behalf of CARICOM, I express our appreciation to our host Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, and the people of Trinidad and Tobago for providing us a most favorable setting in which to conduct the business of the community and to celebrate our Golden Jubilee. The Caribbean's world-renowned hospitality is very much appreciated. I extend sincere gratitude to our outgoing chair, the Honorable Philip Davis, Prime Minister of the Bahamas, who steered our community with foresight and determination through a period of significant developments. The community now welcomes the Prime Minister of Dominica, the Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, into the chair. I extend congratulations to you and assure you of the ongoing support of the Secretariat and myself as you lead the advancement of the community's agenda. I am pleased to acknowledge the distinguished presence of His Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, one of our special guests who will celebrate and exchange views with us at this meeting. Over the next 2 days, we will engage with several guests, including the President of Rwanda, the Prime Minister of South Korea, high-level delegations from both the administration and Congress of the United States, and the President-designate of COP28. There is no doubt that, as our 50th anniversary theme underscores, CARICOM is 50 years strong, and we have a solid foundation to build on. This is a foundation that has been laid regionally and internationally by stalwarts who have been standard bearers for integration and for CARICOM to have its rightful place in the global community. We are building on the efforts of Arthur Lewis, William DeMaas, Alistair McIntyre, P.J. Patterson, Sridhar Ramphal, Nita Barrow, Kamaluddin Mohammed, Peggy Antrobus, Owen Arthur, Patrick Manning, Edwin Carrington, and Billy Miller, to name just a few. They took on the vision of the founders and ensured that as the Caribbean community solidified its regional integration, it made a mark internationally, which demonstrated that the constraints of small size could be overcome by collaboration and integration. It was CARICOM that spearheaded the formation of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific states, now the OACPS, and led negotiations with Europe for preferential trading arrangements. CARICOM was at the forefront of the struggle for UN recognition of small island and low-lying coastal developing states, SIDS, and later played a critical role at COP21 in Paris in 2015, resulting in the agreement to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. CARICOM resuscitated and our leaders led the charge towards the International Criminal Court. CARICOM prioritized the importance of health in development policy in the Nassau Declaration of 2001 and brought the ravages of non-communicable diseases to global attention in the Port of Spain Consensus of 2007. Within our own space, we have established critical institutions that are high functioning and highly regarded. No one can question the excellence of the Caribbean Public Health Agency, exemplified in their leadership in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. The same applies to the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, CDEMA, whose performance, despite severe constraints and growing demands from the increasing impact of natural disasters, continues to be exemplary. The work of the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center has earned its universal acclaim, and the list can go on. Yes, we do have our challenges, and there are areas crying out for improvement which continue to bedevil us. The knotty issue of transportation, expansion of intra-regional trade, hassle-free movement of our citizens, and the pervasive nature of crime and insecurity stand out in that regard. We are grappling with a multifaceted crisis, crime and security, constitutional and political and humanitarian, in our most heavily populated member state, Haiti. As our community seeks to assist the Haitian people to find an effective solution to the crises, we have appointed an eminent persons group which has started to facilitate dialogue among key Haitian stakeholders, beginning with a broadly inclusive engagement held in Jamaica a few weeks ago. This work will continue. We recognize the critical importance of food security, and as we shall hear from our lead head on agriculture and food and nutrition security, the thrust to reduce our food import bill by 25% by 2025 is gathering momentum. The urgency of advancing our digital agenda is first-line priority, and our regional digital development strategy is also therefore gathering momentum. Through our Human Resource Development Strategy 2030, we are implementing our action plan to equip our young people with the tools necessary to function effectively in the 21st century. We are seeking to embrace even more innovative ideas from our young people and moving to provide opportunities to challenge their creativity into areas of entrepreneurship. Further, a significant part of our agro-food agenda is encouraging young people into the sector, utilizing the new tools of IT-enabled protected agriculture to increase productivity and build sustainable livelihoods. Ladies and gentlemen, despite the global crises, the deleterious effects of climate change and natural disasters, and the ongoing threats to the security of our people, the achievements of the past 5 decades are proof that vision and concerted action are critical to achieving sustainable prosperity and security for our region. Time and again, despite changing global realities, our community has demonstrated that resolve and resilience necessary to maintain the course of integration. The Caribbean community has done well. It is therefore fitting that we acknowledge and celebrate our Golden Jubilee. I have every confidence that our deliberations and decisions over the next 2 days of meeting will set us on a course for another 50 successful years. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Dr. Barnett, CARICOM Secretary General. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present, here to perform, Andre Tanker's Sayamanda.
Richmond, Virginia. Hold on, hold on. Pole to pole and corner to corner. Hold on, hold on. Behind the bridge and across the border. Hold on, hold on. Chain of colors, using them, so connection. Chain of love, Sayamanza, Sayamanza, Sayamanza. Ring the bell, Sayamanza, Sayamanza, Sayamanza. Ring the bell, chain of freedom across the world. Give the children a hand to hold. Like a rainbow, come to life, like the sunshine, bold and bright. From Trinidad to North Carolina, hold on, hold on. From Panama to Richmond, Virginia, hold on, hold on. Pole to pole and corner to corner, hold on, hold on. Behind the bridge and across the border, hold on, hold on. Chain of colors, using hands, so connection. Chain of love, Sayamanza, Sayamanza, Sayamanza. Ring the bell, Sayamanza, Sayamanza, Sayamanza. Ring the bell, ring the bell, ring the bell. Sayamanza, Sayamanza, Sayaman, ring the bell. Sayamanza, Sayamanza, Sayaman, ring the bell. Ring the bell, don't ding, ring the bell, ring the bell.
Thank you to the Lydians. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to address you the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley.
Ladies and gentlemen, protocol having been established across the CARICOM region, I as host Trinidad and Tobago, hosting the region, I'm duty bound to acknowledge Your Excellency, the President of Trinidad and Tobago, Mrs. Christine Kangaloo, and Mr. Corwin Garcia, the Chairman Philip Davis of CARICOM, outgoing Chairman, incoming Chairman, Prime Minister Minister Skerrit, other CARICOM heads of government, Your Excellency Dr. Carla Barnett, Secretary General of the Caribbean Community, Your Excellency Dr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency Hans Duck-Soo, Prime Minister of the Republic of Korea, the Honorable Chief Justice, Mr. Ivor Archie, and Mrs. Denise Rodriguez Archie, the Honorable Bridget Anisette George, Speaker of the House of Representatives, and Mr. Newman George. Senator the Honorable Nigel de Freitas, President of the Senate of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and Mr. Senator de Freitas. Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, Ministers of Government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and other Ministers of Government of the region. Specially invited guests, Your Excellencies, heads of diplomatic mission and ambassadors to the Caribbean community, members of Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, chief representatives of the international organizations, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, good evening. Today, it is my honor to welcome you to the beautiful Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago for the convening of the 45th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM. For us here in the Caribbean, this is a significant event, as tomorrow we also launch the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the signing of the original Treaty of Chaguaramas, right here in Trinidad and Tobago. Historians of the future will agree that this celebration took place at a critical juncture in the regional integration movement. Never before have small states faced the broad and deep range of challenges that we face now. From climate change, pandemic, gun crimes and violence, transnational migration issues, to insecurity with food supplies, our region has been buffeted by many systemic storms. Throughout all of this, the majority of the people of our region have proven themselves to be resilient, resourceful, determined, and dignified. Today, I speak with confidence on behalf of all of my colleague heads of government when I say that we have been learning the lessons that history has taught us. It is true that some of the issues that our founding fathers grappled with on the long journey to Chaguaramas are still very much with us. But this is not to say that we have not made progress. 50 years after the birth of our union, and with the experience of having spawned so many regional institutions and institutional arrangements that work so well for us, now might be a good time to reflect on what it might have been if we were able to hold a Caribbean nation together. Today, we point within CARICOM to the Caribbean Development Bank, the Caribbean Development Fund, the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, the Caribbean Meteorological Organization, CARICOM Implementing Agency for Crime and Security, the Caribbean Examinations Council, the Caribbean Court of Justice, the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, the Caribbean Public Health Agency, the Caribbean Agricultural Development Institute, the University of the West Indies, the Caribbean Competition Commission. We also have a multilateral air services agreement, and we have in place a double taxation treaty. And I carefully add West Indies cricket. I, as a typical Caribbean man, was born in Tobago, lived in Trinidad, studied in Jamaica, worked on the volcanoes in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dominica, Montserrat, and St. Kitts, marveled at the power of the waters at Kaicho Falls in Guyana, and counted the beach in Antigua, Barbados, and Grenada. All the while dreaming of what it could have been if the politics had allowed us to have one Caribbean nation, from northern Bahamas to our Brazilian border with Guyana and Suriname. What a wonderful world it could have been today, even if we had accepted 3/4 of a loaf instead of no bread. However, what's done is done. Let us not despair, Because in the absence of political union, we were able, if not through vision, but through necessity, we have been able to salvage a good chunk of a regional functionality in very many areas, notwithstanding the stress dished out by the men's cricket team. We have CARICOM as the next best thing to bring about regional cooperation. And we must continue to grow the integration movement by adding new blocks to this significant. As CARICOM, we are at our strongest. We could be at our best. Let's claim our space in this world and just do it. On this special celebratory occasion, we can reflect with reverence on the events that transpired in Chaguaramas on July 4th, 1973, and pay homage to the foresight our founding fathers had when they laid the foundation upon which this great family of nations was built. I anticipate that there will be many moments of introspection and reflection over the course of the next few days as we take the opportunity to mark this golden anniversary together, side by side. I am particularly delighted to acknowledge the 4 visionaries who pioneered our regional integration movement with valor and ensured that the original Treaty of Chaguaramas was signed on that fateful day. I speak about the late Prime Ministers Errol Barrow of Barbados, Forbes Burnham of Guyana, Michael Manley of Jamaica, and Dr. Eric Eustace Williams of Trinidad and Tobago. They were leaders who understood that our strength as small states lies in our unity. They understood that our collective destiny can only be fulfilled through our determined collaboration in the face of global systems that are designed to keep us weak, dependent, and apart from each other. It is my belief that if those founding fathers could speak to us today, they would re-emphasize the essential role of this regional leadership to empower our people to navigate the storms that the international order consistently throws our way. Indeed, I hereby inform the people of the Caribbean community that tomorrow, on the 4th day of July 2023, the 50th anniversary of the CARICOM's founding, we, the heads of government, will be placing into a special time capsule our letters, our reflections, our advice, our lessons addressed to our successors 50 years from now, to be opened by them on July 4th, 2073. I hope you see us there tomorrow in Chaguaramas as well. As I survey this lovely audience gathered here in this beautiful afternoon in Port of Spain, I am reminded that a much smaller audience would have traveled to Trinidad and Tobago for that very first Heads of Government conference in July 1973, which was convened by the late, great Dr. Eric Eustace Williams, the then Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Indeed, it was Dr. Williams, an eminent Caribbean historian, who proposed the creation of a Caribbean community at that time. The pioneering members of Barbados, Guyana, Jamaica, and Trinidad and Tobago. Today, 50 years later, our membership has grown to include 15 members and 5 associate members, but even further growth is near at hand. We look forward to joining hands with Martinique and the brothers and sisters of the Dutch Antilles soon. Those early steps taken in Chaguaramas have led us far beyond what the naysayers and doomsayers were certain would have been a short lifespan and another disastrous shattering. But here we are today, 50 years on, side by side, in mutual solidarity, regard, respect, and esteem. strong, committed, and unified. Together, this regional family of nations can examine with pride our achievements during the last century. We have faced many challenges and have risen to overcome them. Despite the difficulties, through our cooperation, our shared goals, and above all else, through the friendship within CARICOM. Our regional integration movement has not only survived, but it has thrived, expanded, and flourished. Whilst we recognize that there's a whole lot more to be attained, at this juncture, we can proudly say that we have been going in the right direction. And with renewed confidence and vigor, we can indicate our intention to continue by joining the famous Jamaican radio announcer, Don Toppin, whose clarion call was always, "Today the Caribbean, tomorrow the world." Honored ladies and gentlemen, I have the distinction of having served in the political sphere for decades, not quite as long as my comrade Ralph Gonzalez, but long enough to have witnessed firsthand the way that CARICOM has remained relevant to the needs and dreams and aspirations of its regional citizenry. Our children need to be taught its relevance and its history. Now, as we enter the post-pandemic era, our bonds are more important than ever before. None of us will ever forget those long, dark days and nights when, over a few years, the lives and livelihoods of our people hung in the balance under the threat of what was then a very novel, death-dealing virus. Our trade, tourism, manufacturing, culture, services, and our very living was severely affected, and the gross domestic product of every member state was significantly affected without exception, and we went into stark decline. The resilience of our community endured this test and survived, in large part to the determination of our people and the strength bestowed upon us by our ancestors due to the strength of our regional organs, such as the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARFA, and due to a caliber of leadership right across the Caribbean that joined in solidarity to advocate when needed, to remonstrate when necessary, to share when required, and through it all, to stand together through thick and thin. Over the past year, we have rebuilt and forged ahead as we have actively advanced the regional agenda, facing our challenges head-on. From rising regional debt to growing trade deficits, we as a community have been buffeted by the ravages of an international financial system designed to disempower us. As serious as the world's problems are, and having been shut out of many of the markets through trade restrictions like the sugar and banana industries, we can hardly be excited by the ongoing prospect of being escorted out of the world's financial system through de-risking and loss of correspondent banking, not to mention being encouraged to hastily abandon our hydrocarbon resources, even as others expand their natural gas production, open up nuclear power, and fire up their own coal powering station. Through participation in a series of ongoing high-level meetings amongst ourselves and with the international community, we continue to chart our own destiny. We did this back in 2001 when we signed the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas and created the CARICOM Single Market and Economy. On the 3rd and 4th December 2018, we, in special meeting, assembled at the Hilton Hotel in Port of Spain, and there we agreed to drive the process by unanimously signing on to the St. Anne's Accord. We did this when we, as a community, met with leaders from around the world to spell out our perspectives and our priorities. And some of those very leaders have joined us in celebration here tonight. We did this when we held landmark events such as the Agri-Investment Forum in Guyana, the second of which was hosted in Trinidad and Tobago, the Afro-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum in Barbados, the Regional Symposium to Address Crime as a Public Health Issue in Port-of-Spain, and most recently, key stakeholder meetings to help address the crisis in our fellow member state of Haiti. These are but a few of the focused approaches that we have undertaken as heads to reinforce sustainable development, tackle poverty, and address rising crime and insecurity in the region. I say all of this to highlight that, beyond the doubts, CARICOM is working diligently to serve the people of the region. While at times the going may be slow, or the outcome may not have been readily apparent, we all continue to build on the strong foundation laid 50 years ago. Even as we prepare for this great future, as Bob Marley and Frantz Fanon said, we cannot forget our past. We can see that our trajectory, though arduous at times, is one that will lead to a better future for all our people. We, as the leaders, must continue to do our part in contribution to this united journey. And in doing so, we will ensure that the foundation laid by our founding fathers was not just a foundation for us, but also one for our children and for generations to follow. To do this, we must continue to have boundless faith in our destiny. It is not my role this evening to speak to the substantive issues in detail. Those will be addressed later on by chairman of the conference and others. My task is a simple one: to set the tone and to extend the warm hospitality of Trinidad and Tobago to our regional partners and international guests over the coming days. I hope you're satisfied with our arrangements. I must acknowledge that efforts of the Trinidad and Tobago team and the CARICOM secretarial staff, who in collaboration with the chairman of conference, Prime Minister of Dominica, have worked tirelessly to prepare a fitting program to commemorate the launch of the 50th anniversary celebrations. In recognition of the fact that the people of our region are renowned for being able to have a good time, this program includes a special 50th anniversary concert planned for tomorrow evening. I am sure that you all look forward to being able to unwind in Caribbean style. Let us celebrate as we in the Caribbean know how. Tomorrow morning, heads of governments will return to Chaguaramas to pay poignant tribute to the important beginnings of this great community. As Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, it is my deep honor to host you on this, the Caribbean Golden Jubilee of CARICOM. And I look forward to deepening the fraternal bonds within our family of nations in the years ahead. I wish you a most productive, memorable, and enjoyable time in Trinidad and Tobago. All that's left for me to do now is to sincerely thank my friend and brother Roosevelt Skerrit, Prime Minister of Dominica, incoming chairman of CARICOM, for visualizing this day and agreeing to allow Trinidad and Tobago the honor of revisiting our CARICOM past as we commit to a brighter and closer CARICOM future. Brothers and sisters, I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, he first learned the intoned singing of ancestral prayers. From the time he was 8 years old, he was curious and eager to explore the mysteries of music. He tried out the harmonium, the centuries-old
dolak and danta, the clarinet, the mandolin. By instinct and by air, he finally chose the king of all instruments, the sitar. He is now an acclaimed Caribbean sitarist, Mangal Patessa, and performing with his fusion band, Pantar, from Trinidad and Tobago, their 2009 composition, Dreadlocks.
Thank you to Mangal Patesar and Pantar. Ladies and gentlemen, to address us now, please welcome the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, the Honorable Philip Edward Davis, KC.
Your Excellencies, I do adopt the established protocol, but I'd like to acknowledge the presence of the Secretary General of the OAS, Luis Almagro, and the Secretary General of the Commonwealth Secretariat, Baroness Patricia Scotland. Ladies and gentlemen, my thanks to the government and people of Trinidad for the warm welcome and the hospitality with which you have greeted us. As our travels take us around the region in our various forums and discussions, there is a lot to be said for the Caribbean personality and spirit, which we sometimes take for granted. Back in January, when the Bahamas assumed the chair of Caribbean Community, I noted that regional cooperation has never been more urgent and necessary. I'm happy to report that during the past 6 months, we have seen a lot of that regional cooperation in action. Part of the experience of the COVID-19 pandemic was the demonstration of the fact that working together, we can ensure the safety of us all. The Bahamas continues to believe that none of us will develop sustainably or securely if we leave our neighbors behind. We continue to believe that none of us will truly prosper if our resources are forever taxed by the poverty and instability of those nearby. And so it is, through close cooperation and action, we've been able to address and make progress on many of the priorities which I set out at the beginning of our term. The Heads of Government meeting held in Nassau in February was a major catalyst and springboard in pushing forward matters. In respect of the regional response to the impact of climate change on our people, we advanced a commitment made in August last year when we determined to hold a united stance and focus relating to the 4 thematic areas of mitigation, adaptation, loss and damage, and support for cross-cutting issues within the region. One of the key outcomes is that Green Climate Fund is willing to assist with the development of a blue economy co-investment strategy for the Caribbean region. As part of our effort to secure an overhaul of the global finance system and processes, CARICOM has thrown its full weight behind the Bridgetown initiative. Colleagues, we must not let up. We must continue to push this agenda forward and continue to build on the great interest and support which other countries have already expressed. Our priorities have also engaged with a range of security-related issues on which I am pleased to report we have seen a marked degree of progress. At the Regional Symposium to Address Crime and Violence held here in Port of Spain in April, we collectively declared crime as a public health issue across our region, sending a clear message that we will not tolerate the epidemic of violence that has gripped our nations and claimed the lives of far too many of our young people. In our declaration, we recognize the urgency of crime in our nations and its cost to our social, economic, and health systems. We immediately implemented the CARICOM Arrest Warrant Treaty and laid the foundation for many other necessary frameworks to build cross-border cooperation, enhance capacity, and enact reforms to ensure safety in our communities. Now, colleagues, we must forge ahead to meet the commitments of our declaration. Our nations and our people cannot afford any less than resolute action. In recognition of the deep and devastating impact which trafficking of illegal firearms from the United States has had on violent crime in our countries, we have declared a war on guns throughout the region. Not for the first time, we join our voices to call upon our neighbor to the north to take action to stop illegal export of firearms to our shores. Our entreaties to the United States have begun to bear fruit. In word and deed, they are playing a much more active role in the effort to reduce the trafficking in people, guns, and drugs. One of the most visible signs of the United States' commitment was evidenced in the leaders' meeting held in May between the leaders of the region and Vice President Kamala Harris. As this was the first official visit to the Bahamas by an American president or vice president since our independence in 1973, we thought that the visit itself indicated an enhanced seriousness of purpose in their stated commitment to engage more fully with the region. The Vice President's commitments to specific security measures and to commit funds to support a number of initiatives were even more welcomed. As global challenges continue to expand and magnify, the certainties of the world order continue to be called into question. We must not let up our efforts to do what we can to guarantee our security in the building blocks of our communities. I'm pleased, therefore, that we have continued to make progress in building greater security, sustainability, and affordability in the supply of food and energy in the region. In spite of the pressing issues, relegate these issues to the back burner. High on the agenda for all our regional discussions has been the situation in Haiti. The Bahamas remains committed to acting as a lead with other CARICOM member states to find a solution to the ongoing humanitarian and security crisis there. The CARICOM-led meeting of stakeholders in Kingston in June was cause for cautious optimism. Stakeholders welcomed the inclusive nature of the meeting, which were a microcosm of the Haitian society. As a demonstration of the effectiveness of regional cooperation, the Eminent Persons Group, convened by CARICOM, was urged to continue to use CARICOM's offices to work with all stakeholders on alternative solutions in Haiti. Along with the moral support our neighbors finding a way out of the political which is causing so much harm, it is a prime demonstration of the point which I have made for some time now, that none of us can be safe until we are all safe. Beyond the pressing issue of security, there's the long-term issue of restoring the country to that fully functional democratic state. This fundamental principle that the people of the CARICOM region should have both a say and a role in their governance is part of the bedrock for our community. This is why CARICOM is already playing a significant role in protecting the internal democracy in the Associated States. And so we joined the meeting of Bermuda, Cayman, the British Virgin Islands, Montserrat, and Anguilla, and reaffirmed their right to self-determination and self-governance. As a matter of principle, we strongly support the proposition that this dialogue should become a standing item of the CARICOM agenda to take place before each meeting of the heads of government. Colleagues, in just 7 days' time, the Bahamas will likewise celebrate our 50th birthday, our 50th anniversary of independence. Activities have been underway for several months, but the date itself is obviously of great significance to us. Amongst our national celebration of past achievements, we have threaded discussions of what we wish to determine for our future. We look forward with great optimism and with a profound sense of hope that we can continue to move closer to realizing the ideals and dreams of our founders. I see so many similarities in the 50th anniversary celebrations of the founding of CARICOM. Finally, I wish to extend my personal thanks to all those who have contributed to the success of our chairmanship. The Secretary General and her team have been invaluable. The staff and your administrations have strongly supported our efforts to move forward our mission. And on a more personal note, colleagues, my gratitude to you for your willingness to engage more deeply in the development of the region. I believe that national and personal friendships, which have been strengthened over the past 6 months, will give us an even greater foundation on which to build. And I'm so happy to hand this over to my good friend, Prime Minister of Dominica, Minister Skerrit, whose capable hands will no doubt continue the building blocks to ensure that our community becomes closer and closer. For all of it, I say thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, on the occasion of CARICOM's 50th anniversary, and at this, the 45th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM, please welcome to address you the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Antonio Guterres.
Distinguished heads of state and government, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. It is my privilege to join you for CARICOM's 50th anniversary. Anticipating tomorrow, happy birthday, CARICOM. Prime Minister Rowley, thank you for your warm welcome. Excellencies, I am coming here from Haiti. The security situation is appalling. Humanitarian needs are soaring, and there is not yet a full political solution in sight. But I came with hope and optimism. And it is impossible to look at the crisis without seeing the long shadow of centuries of colonial exploitation, extortion, dictatorship, and other screaming injustices. We must help ease the suffering of the Haitian people. And I want to remind that our humanitarian appeal is only funded at 23%. It is a tragedy within a tragedy. I want to recognize the critical efforts of CARICOM leaders to extend your good offices, the meeting in Jamaica and the 3 high-level personalities involved. And I will continue to push for a robust international security force authorized by the Security Council to be able to help the Haitian National Police to defeat and dismantle the gangs. And I reiterate my call to all partners to increase support for the National Police in the form of financing, training, and equipment. Let's be clear. There can be no lasting security without strengthened democratic institutions, and there can be no strong democratic institutions without a drastic improvement in the security situation. Excellencies, the challenges we see in Haiti require greater engagement and greater solidarity. And that is precisely the founding spirit of CARICOM. You have advanced cooperation on every front, from economic and social development, to fighting illegal drugs and arms trafficking, to combating non-communicable diseases, to advance gender equality. And of course, you have championed climate action and focused attention on the plight of small island developing states. The United Nations relies on Caribbean expertise and leadership. And I don't have to look very far for that wisdom. It starts in the office next to mine with my chef de cabinet, former permanent representative of Jamaica to the United Nations, Courtney Rattray. And I look forward to working closely with Trinidad and Tobago's own Ambassador Dennis Francis as the next President of the General Assembly. Excellencies, this anniversary is a time for critical reflection on the enormous challenges confronting the Caribbean. COVID-19 has destroyed lives and livelihoods, independently of our extraordinary response. Tourism and export receipts temporarily collapsed. Prices for fuel and food skyrocketed. Debt burdens grew heavier, liquidity dried up, and access to global capital markets worsened dramatically. All the while, the climate emergency continues to escalate, threatening the very existence of small island and low-lying coastal states. We need action on two fronts. First, action to fix finance. Today's crisis has revealed an international financial system that is outdated, dysfunctional, and unfair. As part of our preparation for the Summit of the Future, I have put forward a detailed blueprint for a redesigned global financial architecture, including the Bretton Woods system. But change will not happen overnight. And Caribbean leaders have been pointing the way forward, including Prime Minister Mia Mottley through the Bridgetown Initiative and Prime Minister Andrew Holness through the Finance for Development Initiative. I have proposed a set of actions world leaders can take now. And they include an SDG stimulus for investments in sustainable development, climate action, and more. An enhanced and effective debt relief mechanism. New financial tools, such as swaps that convert debts into investments in climate adaptation. An increase in the capital base of multilateral development banks, and a change in their business model with a new approach to risk to be able to leverage more private finance at reasonable cost in support of developing countries. The rechanneling of special drawing rights, and the shift in subsidies away from fossil fuels and unsustainable agriculture and food systems into sustainable development. And redressing a core injustice facing middle-income countries. The continued lack of access to concessional financing because of allocation metrics that ignore vulnerabilities to shocks such as financial crises or climate-related disasters. And I fully support your call for a multidimensional vulnerability index. Excellencies, that leads me to the second area for action, the climate crisis. Limiting the rise in global temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius is still possible, but it will require carbon emissions to be cut by 45% by 2030. That is why I proposed the Climate Solidarity Pact, in which all big emitters make extra efforts to cut emissions and wealthier countries support emerging economies to do so. And that is why I've put forward an acceleration agenda to boost these efforts. I urged governments to hit fast forward on their net zero deadlines so that the developed countries commit to reaching net zero as close as possible to 2040 and the emerging economies as close as possible to 2050. And Caribbean countries have been showing the way. And developed countries must also finally make good on their financial commitments to developing countries, including by meeting the $100 billion goal, doubling adaptation finance, replenishing the Green Climate Fund, and operationalizing the Loss and Damage Fund this year. I thank Caribbean leaders for your powerful calls for climate justice, advancing global action on loss and damage, investing in renewables, and safeguarding biodiversity, including through the efforts of indigenous communities. Excellencies, in his iconic song, Rally Around the West Indies, the great Calypsonian David Rudder said, "Soon we must take a side or be lost in the rubble in a divided world that don't need islands no more." My message is clear. Our world needs the islands. We need to rally around CARICOM. You have my full support, and I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And now, ladies and gentlemen, from the Commonwealth of Dominica, please welcome the Carina Cultural Group to perform a traditional folk dance, promoting and highlighting the rich Kalinago cultural heritage. The Carina Cultural Group.
Let's hear it, ladies and gentlemen, for the Carina Cultural Group. This is a fitting introduction as we welcome to the stage the incoming chairman of the Conference of the Caribbean Community and Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica. Ladies and gentlemen, to address you, the Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit.
Good evening, everyone. I want to especially recognize the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Her Excellency Christine Kangol, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Minister Rowley, my colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I believe it is fitting that we should gather here in Trinidad and Tobago on this most significant occasion in the history of the Caribbean community, CARICOM. It is significant because it was here 50 years ago that Prime Ministers Errol Barrow of Barbados, Forbes Burnham of Guyana, Michael Manley of Jamaica, and Dr. Eric Williams of Trinidad and Tobago signed the Treaty of Chaguaramas, setting the region on a solid footing on the road to integration. I must thank the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Minister Rowley, for his ready acceptance of my proposal to host the 45th meeting of the conference in recognition of the fact that it coincides with the milestone of our community's golden anniversary. Prime Minister, thank you very much. And I want to say to some of you that Dr. Rowley is a much nicer man than some of you think. You just have to get to know him. I am sure you will agree with me that there is no better place than the birthplace of CARICOM to mark and celebrate this occasion. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I feel a sense of deep privilege that I assume the chair of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM as we embark on another 50 years of strengthening regional integration to further advance gains already made in the interest of all the people of our region. I follow the Honorable Philip Davis, Prime Minister of the Bahamas, whose energetic and thoughtful leadership he did so well, I contemplated at some point to allow him to continue for another 6 months. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, these past 50 years of CARICOM have seen many achievements. We deserve to be proud of our history. It is no mean feat that we have the longest surviving economic integration movement in the developing world. And second only to the European Union globally. We have things that we should be proud of in CARICOM. And so it is with justifiable pride that we should all say, I am CARICOM. Even as we celebrate this landmark in the evolution of our integration movement, we must be mindful that the symbols and events of celebration do not serve as a distraction from the substance of the heavy lifting still needed to make our community viable, prosperous, secure, and beneficial to all of its people. As we set ourselves new targets to ensure that we thrive in this ever-changing global environment, there are unfinished tasks that we must complete. The issue of free movement, non-tariff barriers to trade, reliable and affordable transportation are all fundamental to a truly integrated CARICOM. We must address our minds and collective will to resolve some key issues. We have the opportunity on this historic occasion, and as we deliberate over the next few days, to take some decisions that can be truly transformative for our people and which will shape the future of our community for the next 50 years. On the eve of the 50th anniversary of the CARICOM community, I pose a question to us all. One that I am sure is on the minds of all citizens of this region. What is really preventing us from reviving the single domestic space that once allowed our citizens to traverse freely across our region? We have already tried and tested the Advanced Passenger Information System, APIS, which allows immigration and security personnel in each of our countries full access to the details of every passenger boarding an aircraft or a ferry. The APIS system also makes a nonsense of the continued use of the ED forms. Additionally, the Implementation Agency for Crime and Security Systems, IMPACS, and the Regional Security System, RSS, institutions that we have relied on during the toughest of times, are both well equipped to complement the workings of the Advanced Passenger Information System. My distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to make intra-regional travel a joy rather than a hassle. "16 years ago, we showed considerable commitment and political will to allow our people to move freely through 10 member states. It worked then, it can work now. And we have Sister Mia who pioneered those efforts 16 years ago. Similar political will must be brought to bear on the issues of expansion of the categories for free movement of skilled nationals to benefit the growth and expansion of the regional economy and the spirit of our community. And what better time than the celebration of our 50th anniversary to say to all of us in the Caribbean that we can move freely within the CARICOM space. The reality is that in any free trade arrangement within an integration movement, there will be those who benefit more than others. We recognize this in our revised treaty. It is therefore incumbent upon us all to strive to increase the ability of the less endowed to participate more fully in the trading arrangements. We must all seek to make our arrangements more equitable and use the provisions of the treaty in a more positive manner. It is true that there are dispute mechanism procedures, but we are all in this together for the benefit of the entire CARICOM. This is the true spirit of the community. We are our brothers and sisters' keeper, not only in times of disaster, but in all things. Ladies and gentlemen, unity in economic well-being, in security, in health, and in disaster management must be translated into all our processes. This must be the mantra that propels us into the next 50 years. Another of our processes which must be addressed is that of regional travel. We are all very aware of the challenges of making air and sea transportation more efficient and affordable. But I dare say, it is for these insistent challenges that our region looks most to this CARICOM community for solutions. Colleague heads, we need now to actively pursue creative and affordable partnerships to deliver on the crucial element of integration in the interests of our peoples. The movement of people and goods are the backbone of a successful integration movement. We have done all the studies, and the statistics point us to the favorable outcome of an effective transportation system. I accept that this is a challenge that requires investments, which may not see an immediate return. It requires confidence that the provision of such a service will boost commercial opportunities and encourage more intra-regional travel. Our drive to reduce our food import bill by 25% by 2025 depends in large measure on intra-regional transportation. The early indications are that our agricultural sector and our farmers are rising to the challenge. We need our entrepreneurs, therefore, to look favorably upon the opportunities available in the transportation sector and be there for the long haul. As we reflect and deliberate on the challenges of true integration, we must address our minds to the complex issues facing our member state, Haiti. We have committed as a community to supporting the Haitian people, to broker a Haitian-led solution to the instability that they now face. It is a crisis that requires our continued support and the support of a wider international community. The initial outreach has met with generally favorable reactions. We are well aware that it is just the beginning, and our engagement must build from that. And we must keep the dialogue going until there is not only light at the end of the tunnel, but a station for the stakeholders to disembark from the train, united in purpose and action. The trust that the Haitian stakeholders have placed in us exemplifies the credibility that CARICOM has built over the years. And I say to our brother Prime Minister of Haiti, you will see even increased support for the Haitian people as we seek to find a solution to your challenges. This world owes it to Haiti, and we should never allow an appearance of Haitian fatigue in our world. And we in CARICOM, we shall stand with Haiti. Ladies and gentlemen, friends of CARICOM, it concerns me that too many of our citizens are skeptical and some downright dismissive of the value and benefit of CARICOM. I am personally encouraged, however, by the engagement of our youth and their involvement in advancing the objectives of our community. For it is their actions that will determine where we go over the next 50 years. Yes, we are 50 years strong with a solid foundation to build on. It is upon that foundation that our youth should be bold enough to forge a path for CARICOM that takes it to places that even being. I am encouraged that our young people have shown much promise and have demonstrated their readiness, whether it is in the battle against climate change, their grasp of technology, and the leveraging of new technologies to create jobs right at home, their innovation and creativity, allied with entrepreneurship and cultural products, and in sports and arts. Our youth are the present and the future, and I am proud that this time around, that they too are actively involved in the path being mapped out to help them become productive global citizens. But my dear friends, the region's 11 million young people are dependent on this CARICOM to play a leading role in crime prevention and the elimination of the harmful effects on citizens and societies. Our students are depending on us to harmonize our regional education systems and to set targeted learning outcomes to prepare millennials to not just survive, but to thrive in a fast-paced global economy, to reconstruct a classroom layout and timetable that promotes the development of the holistic child, grounded in culture and values. Ladies and gentlemen, I am thrilled to welcome to this forum the Secretary General of the United Nations. The distinguished Secretary General, by his very presence here, in this significant holiday week in the United States, demonstrates his interest and commitment to CARICOM. Secretary General, we appreciate your leadership and the sharp focus that you have brought to issues confronting CARICOM and the wider developing world. Left to us, we would have appointed you the president of the world. So you'll be in a better position to effect the change that we're looking for. And so, my dear brothers and sisters, a challenge to each of us here assembled is to demonstrate the same level of commitment that the Secretary General has for CARICOM. Let us believe in CARICOM. Take our commitments to and responsibilities in CARICOM seriously. And I'm not here talking about heads. I'm talking about all of us in the Caribbean community must take our responsibility seriously. Let us lift CARICOM up, and we just may be pleasantly surprised by the benefits that a focused, united, unified CARICOM can bring to our countries and to the people we each have the honor to serve. CARICOM has no doubt been good to us, and let us speak about the positive virtues of CARICOM while we address the outstanding issues. May God bless all of us. I thank you very much.
Thank you to the Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica and Chairman of the Conference of the Caribbean Community. Ladies and gentlemen, we are nearing the end of the formal program. I request your cooperation from here on in, please, to remain at your seats until we have afforded their excellencies and the heads of government and the Secretary General of CARICOM and the Secretary General of the United Nations to advance to their next appointment, following which you will be invited to retire to a reception. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the opening ceremony of the 45th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM. Will you please stand for the departure of Her Excellency, the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and His Excellency Kerwin Garcia, SC, and remain at your seats. Please remain standing for the departure of the heads of government of the Caribbean Community, the Secretary General of CARICOM, and the Secretary General of the United Nations.
And as our heads make their departure from the opening ceremony, we thank our viewing audience for sharing in this momentous occasion, the opening ceremony of the 45th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM. Ladies and gentlemen, as the heads make their departure, we now invite you to sit. And now, ladies and gentlemen, you're invited to retire to the waterfront through the doors on your left.
Raise your voices high, sing of your Caribbean
History is who we are and why we are where we are. And from July 3rd to July 5th, we create history and celebrate our Caribbean community at CARICOM's 50th anniversary. 50 years strong, a solid foundation to build. Get ready to witness this momentous occasion that will be etched in our region's story for time to come. And it's all happening on your premier network, TTT. Mark your calendars from Monday 3rd of July. We'll bring you live coverage of the pre-show and opening ceremony of the 45th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM. It starts at 3:30 p.m. and this grand spectacle will set the stage for the inspiring days ahead. Be moved on Tuesday, the 4th of July, when we witness a moment of regional pride during the flag-raising ceremony commemorating the 50th anniversary of CARICOM, a symbol of unity, strength, and progress. And later that evening from 7 p.m., be dazzled by the talent from across the region. It's a celebration of CARICOM at 50 and a food festival to arouse your taste buds. But that's not all. On the 5th of July, we'll hear firsthand the plans and achievements of CARICOM as they chart the course for our shared future at the closing press conference for the 45th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM. Witness these once-in-a-lifetime events and immerse yourself in the rich tapestry of our Caribbean identity, forged by unity, diversity, and collaboration. All happening on TTT. History starts here.
Did you tell your hubby about it, first of all?
I did.
When you were telling him, did you think that he was going to think differently of you or less of you?
I thought exactly that.
In case you've missed it, it's an encore of Nicole Larson Live.